Hello, good afternoon. I hope everybody can see me. Hello, good afternoon. I'm just going to put some more light on. If this is your first time, I've not been live over here for a while. So if you're new to this page, my name is Joanna. I am a trauma-informed counselor and I work with adult survivors of childhood trauma and women who experience abuse. So if you are new, we do that through conferences, retreats, and online courses. Hello. I can see that somebody has joined us. I hope this light's better. So I want to be over here on a Tuesday afternoon. I'm going to be here on a Thursday, on a Tuesday with different people, just having trauma recovery conversations and talking about growth and healing. And I want to kick this off today. Somebody's supposed to join me. I'll see if she joins as we're going along. So I want to talk about something that I saw yesterday that I posted in my group for the women who are healing from sexual abuse. And we just had a conversation about it last night, well, via text in our group, that says healing is ongoing, but after healing, life feels different than it did before. So even though healing is ongoing, that means it never comes to a point where you thought, fine, that's it, it's over. Because personal development is ongoing. We're always learning more things about ourselves. We're always learning more things about ourselves. There are always things that we want to develop about self. And so that's why healing, I believe, is ongoing. And that's why I agree with that. I'm trying to see the best position for the light. And that's why I agree with that quote about healing is ongoing. But the part that's interesting for me is that life, even though it's ongoing, after you've started, life is never going to be the same again as it did before. And we had a conversation about that. And hey, okay, Camilla, I can see that you have joined. I'm going to try and add you so we can have this chat together. No, I've never added somebody to can you request to join? Because I've never added somebody to an Instagram live. I'm used to doing live in other places. So if you can request to join, then we can have this chat together. Camila and I have this chat all the time on our own, privately. So we're going to try and do it here. Now, I don't know how to make you join. So just request, if there's a way for you to request to join, I'll add you to the call and we can have the conversation about why healing is ongoing and what does it look like. Okay, fab. To be added now. And what does it look like before you start and after you start? And why would you encourage somebody to do it? What does it look like before it starts? Hey, you're here. You're on.
Hi, Joanna.
Oh, hello. So, hi, everybody. So just tell us, I started, Camilla, talking about the topic, healing is ongoing, but life is different after you started than it would before. And I just want us to talk for the next maybe 10 minutes about what does it look like before, what does it look like after, and kind of some of the things, because I know sometimes people are afraid, people are worried about starting because it feels overwhelming, and because it feels overwhelming, then people struggle, and some people struggle on and don't start at all. So before you tell us from your perspective what it looks like before and after, just really quickly tell us about you and who's the diary of a church sister.
So hi, my name is Camillia Brown. I am the owner of or leader of Diary of a Church Sister. It started because of my own healing journey and the trauma that I went through. And I recognized that there were so many sisters like myself in church that were somewhat existing in church, but not really whole, not healed, not really tapping into their full potential because they were trapped in the pain of their past. So the moment I started my healing journey, I was empowered now to share with others, and I started Diary of a Church Sister.
Fantastic. So, I mean, I know what the journey looks like before and during and after as well. And it's a complete change. It's a complete new person that started the journey. What are some of the, because I see you post that on your YouTube channel, and I see you talk about it sometimes when you comment on our posts on Winston's Cars on Facebook. So tell us some of the things that people can look forward to after. I think we all know what it looks like before, being riddled with shame and fear and pain and guilt, and use coping mechanisms. Thank you, Susan, for joining. Use coping mechanisms that are unhealthy. We use food to cope. We use, overwork and different things that we use to cope, but it keeps us alive. And so I don't judge people for the coping mechanisms that they have, because I believe it kept them going, it kept them here, and we're really glad that they are here. But what can people look forward to after? Would they still need the same coping mechanisms?
All right, so first I want to say welcome to Jody, who has joined us. After you know that I can tell you though, because I can paint it to be blissful, healing to be blissful, but the reality is that it gets nasty.
It's hard,
right? Work. It's hard work. There's somewhat confusion when you start the work, but as you go through the process, is that there's just this enlightenment where you're now getting to know who you really are as a person. You start to identify the things that you really like. You're now able to set boundaries, like healthy boundaries. You're now able to identify when you're triggered. What is a trigger? Why am I triggered? You're able now to control yourself and to self-soothe, right? You're not able to accept
without using, sorry, you said self-soothe, without using the same coping mechanism. So because you said healing is hard, it's messy, as you said, because we have to dive into the pain, because we can't heal by going around it. We go into it, and that makes it's hard, because you're feeling all the things. But you said you can get to the place where you can self-soothe. So would people, after you started the journey, self-soothe with the same way, or do we do it differently?
I mean, definitely it's differently. It's not, because if I share with you, one of my negative coping mechanism was actually having sex, right? And I wanted just to feel happy afterwards, not to be in the space. But now I recognize that I don't need to do that. All I need to do is sit with my current situation. Yeah. Evaluate. I sit with it on that wall. You know that wall that we talk about, Joanna? I sit with it on the wall, and I say, all right, do I want to go back to my negative coping mechanism, or do I want to work through my current situation? And I find that when I work through the current situation, I end up victorious. I end up not having to go to God and say, God, I'm so sorry. Will you forgive me? Please.
He's forgiving though, isn't he? He's amazing. You said one thing. I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, you spoke for us at Winston's Cars when we had I think I was doing a winter summit or something like that, and you were one of the speakers, and you said something that was so life-changing for me, and I know for the people who were listening. You said, I took my pain at the cross and I left it there, and I said, that's your problem, you deal with it. I'm paraphrasing, but I thought that was so significant, because you're like, not my pain, your children, they hurt me, you deal with it. And I think the difference with that was, because sometimes we use prayer. I just wrote a trauma stabilization workbook, and I put in unhealthy coping mechanism, I put Bible study, and I'm like, should I put it there? But I did, because I know that sometimes we use that to hide behind as a way to not deal with issues. And we have to deal with things in order for us to heal. So if I always say to have healing, you have to pursue it. And if that was a person, I think that would be you. That would describe you. You really pursued healing.
Thank you so much. And as you say, sometimes we can use Bible study, and one that I find from the other day I've been looking at, and we see it online. Praise through the pain. Just praise through it. Praise
I mean, what does that mean? How do you do that?
How do you do that? You put it put the pain on the back burner, and then you praise through it. Guess what? The pain is still going to be there.
We want to acknowledge the pain. we want to acknowledge the pain and have some tools to work through it. That's how we do,
Yes.
that's the story. That's how we do it.
So with your therapist and God, you go to God in prayer and you say, Lord, this is where I'm at. And with the tools that your therapist has given to you, and you know that, okay, I need to maybe journal, but you're not able to find the strength to journal, you go to God and say, God, I really need the strength to journal at this point in time. I want, this is what I want to do. I don't want to journal. I want to go the other side.
Yeah.
But will you give me the strength to
Right.
just be able to work through this situation? And that is what God wants us to do. And I believe that when we seek him that way, he smiles and he gives us the power that we need to overcome and to be able to work through our pain at that particular time.
So that's one of the difference that you've identified, that as opposed to use my unhealthy coping mechanisms, there's this wall I sit on, I work through the feelings, I allow myself to feel them, and I use the tools that I learned to deal with it. And now, even when I'm in the midst of the triggers, even when I'm feeling all the things, when I'm feeling upset, when I'm feeling angry, when I want to cry, when I'm feeling sad, when I'm lonely, I can still feel those things and I can still choose, because I've been strengthened to choose something else. And that's why life after healing is so much more peaceful and rewarding, because you now are in control and those triggers are not controlling you anymore. And you mentioned therapy, and I know not everybody can afford it. Not everybody feel they should do it. I think everybody should do it in the whole wide world. Not because I'm a counselor, but I think it just makes such a massive difference. But that's why I do groups at Wounds to Scars. So we have groups. We're starting a new group tomorrow night for women who are healing from sexual trauma. We have one on a Monday night. That one's closed. We can't add anybody else. And we have a group for women who are healing from domestic abuse, because I believe in the power of groups and sisterhood to help women heal. And, we did the Storm Chaser, where we did healing from rejection and abandonment. That was my favorite one, I have to say. Don't tell the others. But I absolutely love that healing from rejection and abandonment, because I believe what all the other traumas that we experience, when we don't have secure connection, it really does make things so much more difficult, because it affects how we are relationally. And that needs to be fixed. So the conversation changes. Carry on.
Sorry, and as you put on the Storm Chaser group, I was a part of that, and trust me, it opened up my eyes to so many things. So many of my negative coping mechanisms were attached to my abandonment issues that I'd faced as a child coming up, and being a part of that group, Joanna, trust me, listening to the other ladies share, and I was able to even relate to. And when in my own life experience, I remember I told you about the story where I was triggered, and all I wanted to do was to be by my mother's side. No, my mother is deceased, and I got on a bus and I decided that I was going to go right at her graveside to just sit and be there. And I sat in that bus that would not move for about 45 minutes. And the Holy Spirit says, get out. Deal with the issue. And so I was able to...
You were off the emotional brain now. Your emotional brain was calming down. You could get access to your frontal lobe, where you could now hear.
Yes, and I was able to now process that, to deal with it. I came out of the vehicle, and I went home and I sat with the feeling at that particular time, and I was able to recognize that, I was just seeking a place to have secure attachment. And now I went, instead of trying to go to my mother's graveside, I went to God, I dealt with it. And when I came to the group, I came there victorious, like, oh, look at me.
Groups are amazing. I mean, I'm just so, and I know you're proud of yourself, and you should be, that just we can have this conversation because you've put the work in. Now, healing, does it ever feel like I'm done, there's nothing else for me to do, I don't have to, there's nothing else for me to work through, or you're noticing difference, but are there situations where you think, I could do some more work here, and I can do some more work here? How does that feel? Does that feel discouraging, or does that feel like empowering, like, oh yeah, I can see it, and I know what I need to do?
Sometimes it feels a bit discouraging, like, didn't I do all of that work? Why am I here? But when you look at it, when I sit down and look at it, I'm like, I feel empowered because now there's another layer to my story that I'm able to deal with,
Yeah.
to overcome, to get victory over, and to process so that I can show up as my authentic self. Because this, what I've learned about the brain through studies is that the brain actually protects us. So there are some things that we will remember and some things that we will remember over a period of time. So as we remember these things, we deal with it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it is just an empowering thing for me to be able to even remember, even though they're painful. It feels good to remember. So I can now identify, why am I feeling this way? Why do I react? And now I can deal with that. If I need to do, whether it's wanna be a part of a group, or I need a one-on-one, or I can maybe do with the storm chaser, buying the journal and having that and sitting down with it and working through it with me and God, and then maybe going into the group.
Yeah, I mean, awesome. And you know, when we do our retreat in Jamaica in July, I'm so looking forward to that one.
Me too.
Can you imagine journaling while we're looking at the beach? I think it's just going to be the best environment to do that work in. So when we do our retreat in Jamaica in July, more skills, because of course can't do it without you there. So
No.
but healing is layered, isn't it? Like you're always and that's why healing is ongoing, because we're always discovering things. And as you grow, you're in ministry, you're serving, as you grow, there's going to be one layer to deal with. And I mean, every when you're trained as a counselor, as I did, you have to get counseling too, because you have to, you know, parallel process. Everybody have something to work through. I believe we've just come through a pandemic, and I believe it. I don't know if there's anybody that can say that the last 2 years haven't affected me in any way. It has affected us in different ways. We've lost people who we love, colleagues, family members. Life has been challenging, and we've come out of a pandemic. Well, we're not even out yet. Now we're in war, and there's always something that's going on in life. And it's really important to have safe spaces where we can just go say, hey, you know, today's a bad day. I'm having a bad day today. How do you cope with bad days? I usually have really good ways of coping, but I find the coping mechanisms that I have, they're not working. Help me find some new ones that are healthy so I can keep going. I believe we all need that. But as I was saying, healing is layered. Like if you didn't start one layer, do you think you'd get to the place now where you're going? I'm in a bus. I can hear the Holy Spirit say, go home, journal, work through your feelings. You know you need your mom, but she's not here. What else can you do to fill that need, to meet that need that you have for yourself, so that you're not using your old coping mechanisms?
No, I would not have been able to identify that if I did not deal with everything else that was on top.
Yeah.
Because I find that you have to deal with that layer, and then you're able to deal with the other layer.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, if you don't work on it any at all, what will happen? You're not equipped to deal with the issues that are there.
Yeah.
Right? And unless you start one by one, it's like peeling back an onion. In order to get to the heart, you have to take off a layer by layer by layer. So that's what we need to do. And when we are able to do that, because what I find too, Joanna, is that I'm a chef by qualification.
Right.
I'm a chef. Right? And while in the kitchen, and when you're cooking with the onion and you're peeling back the layers, it will hurt your eyes at first, but eventually your body adjusts to the scent, that the thing that is coming from the onion. Eventually you will adjust, right? And even if it hurts, you will adjust. Eventually you put that onion in the pot, you put the onion into the pot, and that pain is there no more.
It no longer, you can peel onion without your eyes watering.
Yeah.
That's a really good example, really good analogy. So the more we work on the stuff, it's the less painful it becomes. And even though we have to go layer by layer in healing, there comes a point when we can have these kind of trauma recovery conversations and it doesn't
Yes.
hurt. Is
Yes.
what I'm hearing. That's amazing. It doesn't always hurt. We can have triggers and it doesn't always hurt. We can understand it, we can put things in place, and we can get to it. We can move forward. So healing is ongoing, but healing after feels different than it did before. It's amazing. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for coming, Camilla. We're going to continue our trauma recovery conversations every Tuesday around this time, or just before, here on Instagram. I'm back on Thursday where we're talking about how, and I'm going to be talking to my little sister who looks exactly like me. We're going to talk about how trauma affects women and relationships and how we show up in our parenting, in our marriages. These are conversations that I think are necessary for us to talk about. If you want to learn more about Wounds to Scars, visit us at woundstoscars.com. But thank you all for joining. I can see that people are here. I don't know if anybody have any questions that they want to ask, or any insights, anything that we talk about that you want to ask questions. If you don't want to ask it here, I always like to give people the option, Camilla, of putting it in our message privately, sending me a message, because I know these are hard conversations for people to have, especially if you're not used to having them. We talk all the time in our groups. We talk for ages on the phone and just unravel and talk about things, but we want to make it comfortable for people to ask questions. Any last thing you want to say before we wrap up?
I just want to say, dealing with Aaron, dealing with the issues liberates you.
Absolutely.
It liberates you from the pain of your past. It liberates you from shame. At one point in my life, I had shame attached to so many things, and I really I just hide behind the smile and being present. At one point, I would just hide behind being quiet, not even recognizing my personality type, which I'm a sanguine, I'm loud, I'm all over the place, and I'm able to accept me for who I am. If I did not do the work, if I did not get into the nasty stuff, I would not be able to be sitting here today, and you can be able to, maybe you're not able to be on a platform like this, but you are able to be liberated from the pain of your past, from the shame, from the guilt, from everything that has held you captive over the years. Healing, not coping mechanism, but healing is a sure thing. Once you take on the journey, it may be rough, but for a sure fact, on the other side is empowerment and liberation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you touch on shame, which is such a big reason why we don't. There's so many reasons why people are ashamed. People are ashamed because we were sexually traumatized. People are ashamed because I didn't have connection with my mother, and people are ashamed because we got hurt in our families, and we're ashamed to process that hurt because we feel if we do, then we're not loyal to the family. We're not, we're somehow shaming the family if we want to talk about what happened in it. And it's none of those things, because you can do two things. You can love your family and you can heal from the trauma that you experience in the family. Those two things can happen. And it's really important to be able to separate one from the other. You can be grateful and you can still need to heal, because your lack of being grateful doesn't stop the pain and the dysfunction from following you through life. I'm doing a series of interview with some men, and I'm starting on Monday, and I'm really excited about that. And the first person I'm interviewing he says, I've had to heal from toxic relational patterns in my family. And he's a young man, he's at university, and I thought how beautiful that he recognized the toxic relational patterns and he's making a decision to heal from it. But shame can stop us, and sometimes the shame is structures that we had to develop in order to cope, right? And we hide in it, and it doesn't. Shame can look like this. It's operating beneath the surface, but we're not. It doesn't show, so nobody knows that we're in shame.
True.
But it caused so much disruption. It stops so many things. So it's really important to be able to recognize it, know the lies that it tells, be able to release shame, release shame. And
Yeah.
believe me, you get to the place where you can live without it, where you can operate without shame, where you can talk about the thing and work through the thing and own the thing. And shame is not a crippling thing. And Brene Brown says something that I love. And she says, shame cannot survive empathetic connection. And that's what groups, retreats, you know, those small groups provides a space where shame cannot survive. Because when you speak your shame and there are other people who can connect empathetically with you, then shame, right? Shame has to go then, doesn't it? You can work through it. So thank you again. I mean, we can go on and on because you and I enjoy talking about these kind of conversations. Thanks everyone for coming on. Join us again next week when we're going to be here again talking about more trauma recovery conversations. If you have any questions, please feel free to inbox me or inbox Camilla, and we can talk about it. See you next week. Thanks, Camilla.
Okay. Bye. Bye, Joanna.
Bye.
Thank you.